Hello, and today is, of course, Tuesday, May the 5th, and it's 2015. This is the Parker Marchant Show, and I'm your host, LM Love. I'd like to thank you for tuning in, and I'd like to thank those people who are choosing to listen to me. Obviously, these are just personalized rants from time to time, commentaries on what is actually happening in the mainstream media, as well as what's happening culturally to others around the globe. So I'm glad that you're here, and thank you. I hope that you're in good health, and I hope that your life is one that is flourishing and is productive and full of everything that you dream. Now, having said that, I'd like to say this. What in the world happened with the Atlanta public school system and the sentencing? Of course, it is true that the 11 educators that were convicted, with the exception of the one, leaving 10, of course, to actually face the judge's ire when he treated them like, he stated, common felons. It seemed that the judgment may have been a little bit harsh. A lot of people felt that they shouldn't have gotten jail time. I think it's probably more than enough punishment if someone is to lose their licensure for a profession that they have given their heart and soul to, and definitely wanted to contribute to society as a teacher, which is one of the most noble professions in the world. Now, it is true that a lot of these people probably made the decision to listen to their so-called superiors, which is why they felt it was perfectly acceptable to give the answers to their students when they were taking these standardized tests, in order, of course, to not only benefit themselves and the school's reputation, but in order to gain monetary compensation for being high performers and for having students that were actually meeting or exceeding the standards. Now, this is all dishonest, and obviously this is not something that any person should ever want or choose to do, even though in this case it seems a lot of these people may have felt they had their backs up against the wall. They were afraid that they were going to be alienated by their superiors, that there would probably be some type of retaliation if they did not go along with the program. Now, of course, there were those brave souls who decided that they were going to buck the system, that they were not going to concede to what the so-called higher-ups had told them to do, and so they decided to let their principals, supervisors, know that they were not going to give the answers to their students, that their students were there to learn, and that giving them the answers would be teaching and sending them the wrong message, and in the long run those children would not be learning anything except how to cheat and how to be dishonest. Those are two principles that teachers, normal teachers, do not want to communicate to their students. You're actually, as a teacher, a role model in a young person's life, and you have to set the example. When these 10 educators, the ones that were convicted of the charges, decided to give the answers to their students, they made a decision that ultimately changed their destinies as well as the destinies of the children that were involved in these scenarios, which were totally unfortunate and certainly not acceptable. At the same time, one does wonder, was the judge a little too harsh in his initial sentencing of these educators? Do they need to serve time behind bars, or would probation been enough? Perhaps they could do some community service and actually earn their way back to being in the classroom, work at a homeless shelter, working with children who are severely in need of one-on-one tutorials in math, reading, science, and English, or whatever. Perhaps that would have been a better way to utilize their time and teach them a lesson, hard-earned at the same time, where they would be working without being compensated, but simply doing their duty the way that they should have done it in the first place in the classroom, before they made the fateful decision to take the instruction of someone in a higher position that was actually leading them down the wrong road. So we really can't say one way or another. I mean, there's obviously going to be opinions always when it comes to topics that are this controversial. Obviously, with the Atlanta Public Schools scandal, it made a lot of people across the nation, if not the country, think about the way things are handled. And maybe it is true. These teachers were afraid for their livelihoods. They have families to support. They have bills to pay, just like anyone else. And perhaps at the end of the equation, all they could think about was the fact that they had a mortgage, or that they have, private school tuition for their children, or maybe they were just barely making ends meet. Teachers don't typically make a lot of money. And unless, of course, they had another supplementary income, or another person in that household was a real top heavy-hitting breadwinner, sometimes it's very difficult for teachers to even maintain a certain standard of living. And so they're grossly underpaid. I think most people would agree that teachers definitely deserve to earn more, those that are teaching K through 8. We're not referring obviously to advanced education or professorial level. Those individuals, it's a whole different ball game, and they are a little bit better compensated. And of course, there's the prestigious thing that goes along with having a doctorate at teaching at the university level. So there's a lot of differences there. But when we're talking about right now K through 8, those teachers and the high school level, in the public school sector, a lot of times those teachers are grossly underpaid, and they do deserve to earn more for the service that they perform every day. Teaching is very difficult. It demands a lot of your attention, your energy, your focus, and your ability to be essentially open-minded and fair, while also being a disciplinarian without being too rigid. So it takes so much from a person to actually be a really excellent teacher, let alone to have the pressures from the principals and the superintendents telling you that your students need to pass these tests, or else your job may be on the line, as was in the case with the Washington, D.C. school district when Michelle Chi took over as the chancellor. Of course, that was a while ago, and now things are different. But at one point, she was actually criticized for giving financial incentives to her teachers whenever their students passed the standardized test and scored really high. So one does have to know that there is such a thing as walking a fine line between providing incentives for teachers that are producing high performers academically, and for making certain that the teachers are not so vested in earning those financial remuneration, or whatever you want to call it, those incentives, that they get lost in their focus and forget about the fact that they need to make certain that their students truly do understand the material, and that when the test day arrives, that they truly have taught everything that those children need to know in order to perform independently and to be able to actually master the skills and the knowledge that they were expected to actually absorb during the lessons that were given in the classroom. Being an educator, again, especially in those critical stages of child development, is one of the most important jobs that there is. I mean, there's very few things that can really compete when you're talking about you're shaping the literal future of a society. So it's so meaningful, and therefore maybe the judge looked at it like this, that they were compromising the lives of the future generations. That's a possibility. Still in all, I'm not sure if these are people that belong behind bars doing hard time. Maybe if they could just do maybe an 8-month stint or a year, and even that's difficult for someone who is not used to that kind of lifestyle, who's never been in trouble with the law. They're sincerely going to have a tough time being in prison of any kind for any amount of time. So I really do hope that everything's turned around when the attorneys are able to plea out or whatever it is they need to do, that these educators will get a fair shake, and that they will get sentences that are really truly fitting of the crime that was committed. Because unfortunately it still was a crime, it was dishonest, and it essentially does deserve some level of punishment. However, The punishment should fit the crime. It shouldn't be overkill. It shouldn't be a matter of making an example of these people just because you can, or you want to put the fear of God into other people coming behind them and stepping into the classrooms to know that this is not something you're ever going to get away with again. Well, I guess it just remains to be seen what is going to happen as things develop. I will try to keep my eye open, and if I feel that there's something more that I want to say about this topic, I will certainly come back again and offer my little take. As always, this has just been a little bit of food for thought. My opinion, like me, everyone has one. So, I just want to wish all of you a really great Wednesday, a happy rest of the week as you get past that middle point slump and you go on to the weekend. We know that Mother's Day is coming up, so it's a very special time for families. And so I hope that all of you are taking the time out to make sure that you get something special for Mom, if you're fortunate enough to still have one in this world. Sadly, I am not. My mom left this world way too soon, and I was actually a child when she left. So it's pretty difficult for me. Mother's Day is not particularly one of my favorite holidays, but I definitely do value the importance of being a mother and respect any mother out there, even if the mother is actually of the male gender, because you do have a lot of Mr. Moms out there who are holding it down, and they're doing it well. I mean, without any hesitation, they're taking the bull by the horns, and they're making certain that their children have everything that they need to not only survive but to thrive in this world. So I just hope that all of you have a wonderful holiday. I may come back again and do a special segment on the importance of mothers, motherhood, and all that that represents, because it obviously is the time for Mom, for us to recognize the significance of who she is, what she does, and how much she means to us. So thank you for listening. Again, as I always like to close, live each day as if it's your last one. And love those that you love as much as you can, as hard as you can, forever how long it is. For tomorrow is not promised to any of us. Take care, and thank you so much for listening. And please, before I leave, if you have any comments, I'd love to know what you think. Take care.